this fish stew is going to be a crowd pleaser and you are going to enjoy cooking it because it's so easy to put together. It's such a celebration of many varieties of seafood, from good old mussels, squid, a selection of white fish and prawns. Now I'm going to do it in the Cook For Me, which is a smart multi-cooker. And what I love about it is I'm going to be cooking it in two ways. First, I'm going to pressure cook. So we're going to get beautiful soft calamari, and then I'm going to add the other seafood. Now the reason I'm cooking it twice is because the squid takes much longer to cook as opposed to all of the other ingredients. But first we need to start browning off some onions. So just one onion that I'll dice. And what I'll add with these onions is some chili and some good old anchovies. Now, anchovies are going to give it a gorgeous savoury flavour. It's not going to give it some extra fishiness, but more, it's going to season the whole dish. So we'll chop all of those anchovies with our onions. I'm using 3 anchovies and finely chop it. And when you finely chop it and when it starts to cook, what happens is they melt away, so you won't even notice them in the stew. Now I'll add a good glug of olive oil into the multi-cooker, and I've preset it to browning, so we start to caramelise these onions. So in they go, nice sizzle, along with the chili flakes. And then what I'll add are the stalks of the parsley. These stalks we usually throw away, but there's so much flavour in it. Just make sure that you finely chop it. So just into small little rounds, just like this. And we will use the parsley leaves later on in the cooking process. So we'll keep that for later. And now the stalks can go in. And then just with a wooden spoon, I'll give all of that a mix, just so those vegetables start to soften. Okay, those onions are looking great. So now it's time to add the squid. I've got squid tentacles, and I've also got the hood of the squid, which I've cut into little cubes. Now, there's 2 ways of cooking squid. You can flash fry it in a pan, or you can slow cook it. When you slow cook it, the squid transforms and goes really soft and buttery. Now, you can slow cook it, it's going to take 35 minutes. Or what I'm going to do is pressure cook this squid, which is going to give it that gorgeous slow cooked finish in no time at all. So once this starts to change colour, I'm going to deglaze this with some white wine and seafood, best mates. So in it goes. And before you add the tomatoes, you really want to cook off that alcohol, that raw flavour of it. So give it a stir, and you can see that it's rapidly boiling now. So I'll season it with a very small amount of salt. I'll be adding some mussels later, so they retain some salty water, and also the anchovies were salty. I'll add some freshly cracked pepper. And now it's time to add the tomatoes. I'm just using 1 can of crushed tomatoes. In they go. That's going to give us a really lovely sauce when it's mixed in with the seafood and that white wine. And instead of serving this with pasta or rice, I'm really going to make this a whole meal in one. So I'll add some white beans. Just 1 can of white beans that I've rinsed and drained. They can go in. And one last stir. Lid can go on. And we can lock that. And now I'll pressure cook this for 10 minutes. Now the beautiful thing about this is it knows when it's cooked, so you don't have to worry about hanging around and waiting for it to cook. 10 minutes, it'll be done, and we can finish it off with all this beautiful remaining seafood. Okay, well that's been cooking for 10 minutes and it automatically turns off and releases the steam. Now that it's safe to open, I'm just going to give it a really quick stir. Oh, and it smells so good. I also want to show you how soft this calamari has become after cooking for 10 minutes. And I can use my wooden spoon to break it up. It's just like butter. That in itself is delicious, but we're going to take it to the next level with all of this gorgeous seafood. So in order, I'll add the mussels. We'll just scatter them over the top. And there's lots of room in this bowl, so you can be quite generous with the amount of seafood that you add. The next thing I'll add is the white fish. I've got some rockling here and some cod that can go in. And then our prawns can go on top. I'll give that a really quick stir, just being gentle not to break up the fish. And now this is going to cook for a further 2 minutes. That's all it needs to cook the rest of the fish perfectly. Okay, this stew is cooked. Let's have a look at this. Oh, and the smell of that is just sensational. Now I can see that this is cooked because the mussels have opened up perfectly. You can see them there. If you want to be pedantic, you can take all of the shells away and then just mix through the mussel meat. You know what? I'm going to leave it as is. Now I'll add some freshly chopped parsley in a generous handful, and I'll just gently fold that in, ensuring I don't break up too much of the fish fillets. That is just delicious. And now let's serve this. So a generous ladleful, getting the fish and those beautiful beans. And you know what? This isn't all in one, so you want to serve a generous amount of it in the bowl. And because we added those white beans, you can see that that sauce has thickened up naturally. I'm just going to add a little bit more of this juice. And for some accompaniments with this, some baby spinach. I'm not cooking the baby spinach. I want it to wilt naturally over the top of the gorgeous seafood. So just a small handful. Some sour cream. You could also use some yogurt to make this extra creamy. I like the tartness of it too. Just a generous teaspoon. And some avocado on top. A drizzle of extra virgin olive oil. And some salt just over that avocado so we can season the avocado too. And lastly, some freshly cracked pepper. That is a fantastic stew. You know, with stews, you always associate it with long, slow cooking. Well, it doesn't always have to be that way. This takes 15 minutes all up, and look at that. That's hearty, it's delicious, and it's great to change it up using seafood.